At this moment in time, we still don't have absolute 100% undeniable proof that the Switch 2 exists. After all, it's only been on the market for 7 years come March, and most Nintendo systems last way longer than that, right? Well, let's see. The NES released in 1983 in Japan, with the SNES following in 1990, so that's a 7-year console life. But to be fair, technology was always advancing, and the jump from 8-bit to 16 was enough to send grandma into a chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, diabetes, depression, and dementia shock. Okay, maybe I just went to Google for that one. SNES to N64 was even a bit shorter at 6 years, and then 5 for the GameCube and Wii. At last, then there was a 6-year gap between the Wii to Wii U, and for obvious reasons, only 5 years leading to the Switch. So, if anything, the Switch is pretty old for a Nintendo system. Well, yeah, it kind of is. But this is also the first generation Nintendo had a runaway success since really the SNES, or even the NES, and technically the Wii. But that was more of a fad. So how long does Sony keep their consoles out? After all, they are regularly the top seller in console sales. To spare you from numbers on numbers stacked on a castle of numbers, I'll just tell you that up until the PS3, they only lasted 6 years, then 7 with the 3, and 8 with the 4 and 5. So why shouldn't the Switch get another year of life on the market? I mean, we haven't even gotten Metroid Prime 4, or Mario Odyssey 2, or Chibi Robo Ziplash HD. The Switch has so much life left. Where's all the game-breaking, genre-defining video games we've been waiting for? First of all, if you agree with that sentiment, let me ask you one thing. Have you ever played Luigi's Mansion 3? It's pretty good. Okay, now there's something we may have overlooked with the non-Nintendo console lifespan increasing. With each generation after the PS3, there was always a mid-gen refresh. The Xbox One, for example, had 2 refreshes, and if you include the PS4 Slim, it also had 2. But most importantly, both companies gave their console a big performance boost right in the middle of the generation. Now, if we look at the Switch, in 2019 we got the Switch Lite, essentially the Switch Slim, since it drops the docking ability and improves the battery. Then in 2021 we got the OLED. The OLED is not a Switch Pro. The screen is nice. It's very nice. It's the same quality as the Switch though. Its battery is also the same as the Switch Lite and later release Switches, and worst of all, for all purposes, everything else on the inside is the same. Now, if we're to assume the Switch was an 8-year console lifespan, we should have gotten the Switch Pro in 2021. So the Switch OLED is the Switch Pro. Not exactly. It comes right around at the sweet 4-year mark, yes, but it's desperately lacking in the also important performance boost. Now, I think we can all thank that to the Gyarados outbreak of 2020, alongside any other unprecedented events, such as the chip shortage. It's been well discussed by larger channels with more views, so if you'd like to learn more on the reason we never saw a true Switch Pro, just go looking around and you'll see. But essentially, the world went to the depths and back and Nintendo bought up a crapload of 6-year-old Nvidia chips so they could last another 3 years before making a successor. If none of that makes sense to you, I'm so sorry. Now, let's take a moment to see why you don't believe a Switch 2 is coming. This ought to be good. First off, well, not necessarily a reason why the Switch 2 isn't real, but a hypothesis on when it will release. Switch 2 won't happen till 2030. So, here's gameplay footage of Witcher 3 on Switch versus literally any other platform from the 8th generation. I hope I don't need to say anything else. Now, of course, saying the Switch needs an upgrade is different from proving it will be upgraded. The Switch needed an upgrade when it was announced, but, well, so did every other Nintendo console after the N64. And the Switch 2 will be met with the same complaints in 3 to 4 years. Alright, next comment. Don't think there will be a Switch 2 because they already milked the Switch, and if they did try to, nobody would really buy it because it's just a Switch with some updated stuff. You know what? Sure, you're not completely off base. I would absolutely agree that for the first year, maybe even 2, the sales will be very slow. Of course, I'm going to buy it. I'll be buying it the moment it's announced, but fun fact, most people prefer to pay taxes, buy groceries, maybe watch their kids play soccer, then they might want to spend their time and money on the Switch 2 right away. This certainly isn't as big of a problem as it was with the Wii, but most Switch owners are families who simply can't afford to buy a Switch, and if they can, good luck Timmy with convincing mommy that this Switch is completely different than the one you already have. It's not gonna happen. So maybe only 10 million sales in the first year. But you know what? I still think the Switch sales will carry over to the Switch 2. Here's why. As long as they cut off most first-party support by Q2 of the Switch 2's life, and third parties even sooner, people will realize all their favorite games are on this thing, and then they'll have to stop paying their taxes just to get a little Chibi Robo action. Now, I know what you're thinking. This is just pointless blabbering from someone who has no clue what they're talking about. Let's look at VGC. Across several reputable sources, it's been said Switch 2 development units have been given to developers, and the plan is to release in the second half of 2024. But what are they talking about? They know nothing. It's not like they have direct access to developers and even insiders at Nintendo. For all we know, everything they say is made up nonsense. So let's instead check out the Switch sales. Ever since 2021, Nintendo console and software sales have been on a decline. Yet the amount of games being made for it have only increased. Nearly at 130 million units, I might say the Switch is reaching market saturation. The DS sold 150 million, but it also managed to cater to the likes of Beyonce on Rhythm Heaven to your 90-year-old grandpa on Brain Age. So hypothetically, let's say the Switch could sell another 20 million units over the next 3 years. Why should they release a Switch 2 that would ultimately hurt the possibility of that happening? The Switch sales are declining, just like I said a moment ago, but that doesn't mean it's not going to sell anything. It absolutely could keep selling units for the next 10 years. And we just got 2 massive games with Pikmin 4 and Tears of the Kingdom. And we have a half dozen incredible Nintendo games coming within the next 12 months. Nothing truly tells me anything that absolutely says the Switch 2 is necessary. Yet, I know 100% for a fact that it's releasing no later than December 2024, but more likely by October. Sure, the Switch could keep selling for the next 5 years even, and I don't expect them to take it off the market until 2026, but the sales are declining. And you don't just wait until there's 0 sales. Let me tell you about a certain law of physics that's surprisingly necessary to this. Inertia is a property of matter, but it's also a property of economics. An object in motion tends to stay in motion, and the trajectory of console and game sales tends to stay in motion when you capitalize on a large install base that's getting fatigued of a 6-year-old hardware and push them all towards a slightly renovated design and better performing console. And that's why the Switch 2 is real. Oh, and if we go back to the leakers I kinda completely skipped over earlier, yeah, of course most of them are real too. You give developers your console a year in advance so they can port their games and get a feel of what's possible with the new hardware. Fundamentally, it only takes a moment to port something to a different piece of hardware, given it's powerful enough and not the PS3. So, if you disagree, I don't know, I guess I'll see you in 5 months, which I predict is when they'll announce the dang buggin' thing. Or at my newly annual Nintendo Predictions video near Christmas time. And no, it's not like Arlo's predict Nintendo. Unlike the blue puppet monster, I'm a cat in a ball. Drink water, and as always, keep cool.